My beloved child, pause for a moment and listen carefully. This moment is by no means passing you by chance. It is no coincidence that you have arrived here, and these words have not appeared before your eyes without purpose. I have paused the flow of your ordinary daily life, because there is something your soul needs to hear right now, before doubt speaks louder than truth. Even in this very moment, there is someone drawing closer and closer to your life under my direction. My timing and my unseen guidance do not take my words lightly, simply because you cannot yet see the whole picture. I know all too well how often you have wondered if I am still preparing something for you beyond the silence, if I am still working even through the ordinary days and heavy nights. You wondered if heaven still remembers those detailed things. You no longer speak aloud, even when disappointment caused, tell you to lower the voice of your prayers. But now, listen to my words. While you were struggling to survive amidst the things that exhaust you, while you were trying to understand the seasons of delay that grew longer than you expected, and while you were asking why certain doors remained closed, and why certain answers were hidden, I was already moving someone through circumstances you did not know, paths you could not trace, and timing you could not control, because I had already decided that your season would not be left empty. Do not let these words simply pass through your heart. Do not treat this like just another fleeting message, for what I am revealing now is connected to things already written even before your current confusion began in heaven. Someone has already been assigned, and whether you realize it now or later, my hands have already touched their path, which is connected to yours. Before your tears became prayers, before your loneliness became words, and before your heart even understood what it was lacking, I had already begun preparing an answer, filled with breath and voice, history and movement. Sometimes you believe that nothing has been prepared because no immediate sign has appeared. But my child, I do not start. Only when you finally open your mouth to speak, I begin, long before your lips even move. I already knew the emptiness that would find you, even before you admitted it to yourself. I knew those nights when you looked strong on the outside, but were exhausted on the inside, and the questions that were blooming within you. I knew which burdens would become too heavy for you to carry alone, and because I knew, I did not wait for the moment you cried out even before your prayer touched my lips. I had already chosen someone before your understanding could catch up. With my plan, I had already marked the timing. Therefore, you must now stop thinking that heaven only responds when despair becomes visible. I move with a wisdom you cannot fathom. I prepare in places your eyes cannot enter. The answer I shaped did not begin when your pain became unbearable. It began when even you did not know that one day you would need what I had decided to send. And what makes this holy is that what I have prepared is not just an event or a sudden situation, but an answer delivered in the form of a person, because sometimes the things I release into a life must arrive through someone who carries exactly what that season requires. Many miss my answer because they are waiting for the sound of thunder when I choose the sound of quiet footsteps. Many look only for extraordinary signs while ignoring ordinary arrivals. Many expect miracles to descend in a way that removes all mystery. But my miracles often enter quietly, wearing an ordinary face that does not immediately announce why it is important. Listen carefully. Not every answer shines from the moment it first appears, nor does every divine movement announce itself with a dramatic sound. Sometimes the very things you prayed for so desperately enter so quietly through an ordinary conversation, an encounter, a reunion, and a presence that only those awake with spiritual discernment can notice the difference. Many have had to merely watch their blessings pass by because they judged too quickly that it did not look supernatural enough. But now, I tell you, some miracles come dressed in simplicity. Some turning points enter through an ordinary introduction. Some of the greatest changes I create begin in moments that people almost missed because they expected something louder. to do not assume that just because something looks simple, it will not be holy. I often hide crucial answers inside, seemingly ordinary moments, until the passage of time reveals what my hands have done. The face of what I send may not match the picture you created in your fear, your memory, or your imagination, but just because the appearance seems familiar does not mean my purpose is weakened. There is a mystery in what I am telling you, for you might already know that person without understanding why your soul keeps being aware of them. You might meet them soon without understanding why that encounter feels so perfectly timed. You might unexpectedly hear from someone again, after a distance, silence, or forgotten time, and wonder why that moment feels heavier than simple coincidence. The reason I am telling you this is that heaven marks specific intersections long before human memory perceives them. There are encounters I have appointed before either side even understands why that path exists. There are names I have preserved in silence until the appointed season arrives. There are journeys of people who seemed completely unrelated until a single moment reveals that their path and yours were always moving toward a shared point that I designed. So do not conclude that just because someone belongs to your past, they cannot reappear carrying a new meaning. Do not conclude that just because someone feels unfamiliar, they cannot carry something deeply connected to your future. I govern timing in ways you cannot predict, and I know how to preserve what is important until your soul can receive it without destroying it through fear or impatience. Therefore, I warn you, now do not push away the person entering your season too quickly, simply because you learned caution through past pain. I know why you try to protect your heart. I know that betrayal taught you how to keep your distance, and I know that disappointment trained you how to step back before hope rises too high. I also know how your mind quickly compares every new movement to the things that hurt you in the past. But if you judge every arrival through the lens of old wounds, you might fail to recognize what is entering under my permission. I am not telling you to believe blindly. I am telling you to be spiritually awake. There are moments when a crucial turning point enters, disguised as a simple encounter, a simple conversation, a simple opportunity, a simple presence. The danger is that a wounded memory prematurely labels everything as ordinary, before discernment even has a chance to listen. But many of the greatest changes I bring begin very quietly before their importance becomes clear. A single conversation can change your direction. A single encounter can open. What delay had covered up a single person might hold the key you did not even know you had lost. That is why you must not rush to close your heart in places where I might be opening something by my will. If you are ready to receive my blessing today, confess Amen in your heart, saying, Lord, I will receive it fully. What I am sending in this season is connected to more than just simple, superficial comfort. This person is connected to healing, restoration, direction, protection, and breakthroughs in ways you do not yet fully understand. That does not mean they replace me. It simply means that I sometimes use the vessel of a person to deliver what that season requires. There are moments when healing comes because someone speaks the truth into places where silence has lingered too long. There are moments when direction appears because someone confirms the things your soul struggled to name. There are moments when protection arrives because I place wisdom by your side before the danger is fully revealed. There are moments when a breakthrough begins because someone carries the access, perspective, courage, and peace to move what has been locked for a long time. You have often prayed for change, but you did not realize that part of what you asked for would come through relationships, encounters, and a presence that I intentionally placed along your path. This is why I am speaking to you carefully, right now, because even if what I release seems ordinary at first, its effects will slowly begin to unfold. Hear my authority clearly. I did not send them by chance. I released them when your soul was ready. I waited, because timing is what protects what heaven sends. If a certain arrival had happened earlier, you would not have understood it. If certain people had come to you before, certain lessons had refined you, Fear would have misread it, immaturity would have mishandled it, and pain would have rejected it. Because readiness is more important than speed, I delayed the things you thought should have happened sooner. I know your inner condition better than you do. I know when your heart is able to receive it without collapsing under the weight of past reactions. I also know when your wisdom has grown enough to recognize what is important. I also know which chapters must close before a new movement can enter safely. So, when I tell you that I released them when your soul was ready, understand that what appears to be delayed often arrives at the very first moment your soul can handle. What it brings, timing, is not a punishment. Timing is protection, preparation, and the way mercy works together. Before this message deepens and unfolds, hold this final truth in your heart. Before these words end, you will understand why this encounter can change the things that were delayed, not because one person becomes everything, but because I often choose a single encounter, a single arrival, a single conversation, a single reunion, a single simple intersection, to begin moving the things that have been stagnant for a long time. What you call a delay might already be moving what you thought was untouched, might already be under my hand. What seemed like silence might already be taking shape beyond your line of sight. So now pay attention. Let your soul remain open, reject hasty judgments, and refuse conclusions led by fear. For what I am showing you has not yet fully unfolded, and because what seems simple at first might carry more of my intentions than you can see right now, my child, listen carefully. I want you to deeply understand what your heart found hard to believe when the days grew long and the silence seemed endless. Heaven does not start working only when you finally speak your pain aloud. I do not wait for you to use your voice. Before I move, I do not wait for your tears to begin arranging the things needed for your future. Long before your thoughts became prayers, long before your loneliness became something you could no longer hide behind strength, and long before your heart crumbled enough to secretly whisper that something had to change, I had already begun moving answers in places your eyes could not see. Therefore, you must not measure my activity by what you feel immediately, for most of the work I do begins in a silence that human understanding cannot reach. You often think that if there is no visible change, nothing is happening. But my child, some of my most important movements begin in places where no human eye can detect them, where no external sign confirms them. All you experience is waiting, but heaven is quietly building the things that will appear later at the exact appointed time, before you even understood the shape of your own true needs. I already knew them fully before you admitted how exhausted your soul was. I knew where the deep fatigue had settled within you. Before you realized how deeply loneliness extended into quiet moments, I was already watching all those nights. You harbored thoughts you could share with no one, before the confusion grew enough for you to start asking why certain things remained unclear. I was already tracking all the hidden burdens, pressing down on your soul. I know the part of you that speaks, and the part of you that stays silent. I know the questions you ask openly, and the questions you bury, because even speaking them aloud is too overwhelming. I knew when your smile no longer told the whole truth. I knew when you wore strength like an outer garment simply because you did not know what else to do. I knew when hidden exhaustion had taken root so deeply that even hope became something you had to hold cautiously. And because I knew, I did not wait for you to explain it to me before your mind could even catch up with what your soul was already carrying. I had already begun to answer. The person I spoke of was not chosen in the moment. Your tears finally burst forth. Nor were they chosen when your loneliness became unbearable, nor were they assigned when you reached the point of asking why certain seasons were so empty. They were chosen before the tears even formed, before a single silent cry touched your pillow, before a single whispered prayer bloomed from your weary heart, before a single uncertain thought crossed your mind, asking if change could ever come. I had already marked the movement in ways you did not know. This is how my wisdom works. I prepare before the fear comes. I arrange before the urgency comes. I move before despair even understands what it needs. What feels like a delay to you is often a process of preparation already unfolding, according to a timing greater than your emotions can measure. I do not improvise an answer when your pain becomes visible. I work with the knowledge that saw your season long before your season even arrived. Divine timing often happens in silence, because silence protects what is being prepared. Many of the things I prepare cannot be explained until they are fully ready. If I were to show you every movement while it was still unfinished, your fear would ask too many questions. Your impatience would seek immediate understanding, and your mind would try to force forward what still needs quiet refining. So I often allow silence, not because I have stepped back, but because silence becomes the hidden place where preparation can safely ripen. Even while you thought heaven had grown quiet, movement was already happening, even while you were wondering if I had forgotten the details of your burden. The arrangements were already taking shape beyond what your natural senses could perceive. Silence was never proof of absence. Silence was often proof that unseen work was being protected for the exact moment it was meant to appear. There were seasons when you believed nothing was happening because outwardly everything seemed unchanged. You woke up to the same unanswered questions you passed, through days that felt ordinary, sometimes heavy, sometimes empty, and sometimes hard to understand. You saw delay where you expected progress. You saw stillness where you hoped for a visible sign. You watched doors remain closed and wondered if heaven had simply chosen to stay far away. But even in those seasons you called stillness, there were movements you did not even know existed. Paths were crossing beyond your awareness. Hearts were being refined in places you could not see, because not everything can arrive exactly when you want it to. Timing was being carefully protected. Some answers require countless unseen details to be quietly completed before they can safely enter your life. What feels sudden to you now is by no means sudden to me. It only feels sudden because you did not see what I was working on. From my perspective, this is never rushed, improvised, or happening by chance. When you experienced only the waiting, I saw the beginning. When you felt only the silence I saw, where each part needed to align. I knew which chapters had to close first, so that a new movement could enter without confusion. I also knew which parts of your heart needed to grow stronger, so that what I prepared could reach you without being misunderstood to you. It may to feel like it appeared suddenly, but to me, it is merely the visible arrival of something that has been quietly prepared for a long time. Think back to the seasons when you believed you were merely enduring emptiness. There were days when you thought your repetitive routine meant that nothing new was forming. There were moments when disappointment taught you not to expect too much because past experiences told you that hoping would only bring pain. There were nights when your own thoughts asked whether there was meaning in the waiting, or if the silence meant you had been forgotten. But even there, my child, the unseen preparation was continuing while you were learning patience through circumstances you did not choose. Others were also passing through their own process of preparation under my hand. While you were growing stronger in hidden ways, someone else was also passing through. Lessons, delays, refining, correction, and my timing. You saw only your own waiting, but I was orchestrating more than one story at the same time. This is why I tell you again, heaven begins to answer before humanity even recognizes the need. Even while you are still struggling to name what hurts, the answer is often already forming, even while you believe silence means delay. Help is often already approaching. Even while you still doubt if your prayer has reached me, the fulfillment is often already arranged. I do not start where your understanding begins. I start where my wisdom has already seen what is needed for tomorrow. Therefore, your present must never be judged merely by visible evidence. What you call empty might just be a preparation process. Still hidden in my care sometimes, you thought nothing important had changed because there was no obvious sign. But much of the most important work I do begins beneath the surface, where trust must survive without visible proof. Your heart often desires immediate reassurance, but faith grows strongest when you learn that my work does not depend on immediate evidence. During those months, when nothing noticeable appeared, I was not standing still during those seasons. When you repeated the same questions, I did not step back, even during that long time when ordinary life felt almost painfully unchanged. The passive, unseen movement was continuing accurately and precisely. Conversations were happening far away from your struggles. Intersections were happening in lives connected to your future. There were delays I allowed, because an arrival too early would not bear the right fruit. I knew exactly when your loneliness would deepen enough to make you see your needs differently. I knew when your confusion would finally reach the point where you would stop relying solely on your own explanations. I also knew when hidden, fatigue would soften the parts of your heart that you had defended with strength alone. And because I knew, I allowed those quiet seasons not to harm you, but to prepare you so that you could now receive what the old you would not have understood. Some silence taught you discernment. Some delays revealed what could not satisfy you. Some emptiness exposed where your trust was still relying too heavily on immediate comfort, even when you did not understand why the days felt so slow. Not a single day was wasted. So now listen to these words deeply. What I prepare is never an accident, never careless. And though it may feel emotionally late according to truth, it is never late. The person I prepared did not suddenly appear in my thoughts just because your prayers became desperate. They were already known in my wisdom before your needs even fully reached your own awareness. Even while you believed you were still alone in the silence, their path was already under my eyes. Their season and yours were already being carefully measured under a timing. You could not control if I have been your compass in the darkness. Confess with all your heart, saying, "Thank you, Jesus, for guiding me." Those quiet seasons were not empty seasons. They were seasons of work hidden from your view. What you called nothing might one day be revealed as a preparation process so precise that it will help you understand why the silence had to remain until now. And when that understanding fully reaches you, you will see that what seemed sudden in your life was never sudden in heaven. It is simply the visible arrival of something that had already been prepared long before you even knew how deeply you would need it, my child. There is something I want you to deeply understand. You have often looked at the people entering and leaving your life, and wondered why some stay only for a moment and some stay longer, why some connections come intensely and then change, and why some voices arrive exactly when you are weakest, only to slowly fade away once their purpose is fulfilled. You try to measure the meaning of a relationship only by eternity. But I do not always send people for the same purpose. Not everyone I place by your side is meant to stay forever, and that does not mean their presence had no meaning. Some are sent for only one season, because that season itself holds a specific need, and once that need is met, their assignment also changes. I know that the human heart attaches importance to forever, but importance is not always measured by length. Sometimes, a single conversation changes more than years of silence. Sometimes, a season of support gives you enough strength to pass through what you could not have crossed alone. Sometimes, a carefully timed single connection becomes the bridge between who you were in the past and who you will become. Therefore, you must not misunderstand a temporary presence as a failure. Some people carry a seasonal assignment, and even if they do not stay forever, what they brought was still a part of my wisdom for that exact chapter, because your soul does not need the same thing. In every season I send different people for different parts of your growth. The person who could comfort you in one chapter might not be the one to sharpen you in another. The voice that made you strong when you were weak might not be the voice you need when I begin to build courage within you, the hand that helped you survive. One valley might be different from the hand I use when calling you to a place where deeper spiritual discernment is required. This is why your life includes Different arrivals, different voices, different influences, and different moments of connection, each carrying something distinct. I never send carelessly. I send according to what that season is forming within you. If the season requires healing, I will send gentleness. If the season requires awakening, I will send a truth that shakes your complacency. If the season requires correction, I will place someone by your side who speaks words that expose what you want to ignore. If the season requires courage, I will bring strength to your side before you even realize how much fear has grown within you. Every assignment has a purpose, even when you do not understand it immediately. Some seasons require voices because silence alone cannot always teach what needs to be learned. There are moments when your thoughts are tangled and you need someone to deliver clarity. When confusion has lingered too long, there are times when I send a voice that speaks with extraordinary precision into places you could not explain. Alone, there are times when a single sentence from the right person reaches deeper than all. Your many personal struggles, because I designed that moment to unlock what was hidden inside you. Not every voice around you carries the same weight, and that is why spiritual discernment is important. Some voices distract, but some voices arrive carrying the exact thing your soul was too exhausted to find alone when I send the voice for the right season. It often reaches the exact point where your own strength has become uncertain. Some seasons require comfort, because I know that your burden is pressing down on you deeper than you admit. I know those chapters where you keep functioning outwardly while secretly carrying so much that no one sees. In those seasons I might send presence over explanation, peace over answers, and warmth over clarity, because comfort itself becomes a form of healing. You often think that help must always look dramatic, but sometimes the right presence itself becomes proof that I did not leave you alone in your heavy burden. Comfort sent at the right time prevents hidden exhaustion from turning into a deeper wound. That is why timing is so crucial. Arriving when your soul is weary preserves parts of your spirit that would have hardened had they been left in silence. There are also seasons that require correction. Although correction is rarely welcomed at first, you do not always enjoy having it revealed where you are resisting growth. But correction given in love protects your future, far better than unchecked comfort ever could. Sometimes I send people who challenge the things that have quietly settled inside you, because if certain patterns remain untouched, they will limit what is to come next. Correction is not rejection. Correction is my care saying that I know you are called further and I will not let you stay where you are. The person sent in such a season might not always be easy to accept, but if they awaken what comfort alone could not change, their assignment still holds purpose. Some seasons require wisdom, because your own understanding has reached its limit. There are moments when the choices ahead carry more weight than you realize. And then I send wisdom through those who see what you do not yet fully see. Wisdom can come in the form of advice, warning, perspective, restraint, or an insight that only later reveals how necessary it was. I know how often you ask me for a sign while ignoring the wisdom standing by your side in an ordinary guise, but wisdom is often one of the quietest gifts I send. For true wisdom rarely arrives loudly when emotions speak urgently. Wisdom often speaks calmly. Therefore, in seasons where decisions are crucial, you must listen carefully. And there are seasons that require a covering of protection, because not all battles are visible. Sometimes, I place people by your side whose very presence is a protection. People who steady your thoughts, guard your direction, remind you of the truth, or stop you from walking too quickly into places where you will be hurt. Covering is not always obvious, but it often protects far more than you understand in the truth. The moment. I know when unseen pressure is building up around you. I know when your heart needs reinforcement before you are even fully aware of what is pressing against you. The arrival I spoke of matches the exact emotional state you are in right now, because I do not send blindly. I know whether your current need is comfort, wisdom, healing, direction, correction, or quiet reassurance. I know where your thoughts grow tired when night falls. I know where past disappointments still influence your new expectations. I know what hidden weariness makes you doubt whether a new movement can truly happen. I know where your strength remains, and I know where you feel weak, even when you do not speak it aloud, because I know what I send perfectly fits that season. That is why timing is more important than appearance. What looks ordinary can actually be a perfect fit, because I measure by need, not by appearance. You might ask, why such help did not arrive sooner? The answer is simple. If it had come earlier, you would not have understood it correctly. If certain people had entered, when your heart was still shaped by previous pain, you might have rejected what you can now receive. If it had been sent earlier, you might have judged what was meant for healing as fear. You might have misread truth as a threat, wisdom as an interference, kindness as suspicious, correction as rejection, and support as unnecessary, because your soul was not yet ready to recognize why it was important. Timing protects understanding. Some gifts become clear only after specific intersections have already begun. Previous versions of you still carried reactions that might have distorted what I intended. You had unfinished lessons. You had wounds that were still too raw, and you had overly strong attachments and expectations built around things you had not yet let go of. So I waited, not because I forgot, but because the waiting allowed readiness to grow. You often call delay an emptiness, but that is because you do not see what the delay is. Protecting countless delays prevent you from misreading what arrives too early. And if I had sent this later, you would have risked missing the help you needed at the exact time this season requires. There are moments when timing is very narrow, because if something arrives too late, it cannot sustain what is right in front of you. Some seasons include pressures you do not yet fully see, and I send help in advance, before the wait becomes too great. If wisdom comes too late, confusion deepens. If comfort comes too late, exhaustion hardens. If correction comes too late, you become firmly set on the wrong path. If covering comes too late, wounds occur that could have been avoided. Therefore, timing is more important than appearance, because precise timing often reveals my care far more than any dramatic appearance ever could. You often notice the appearance first, how it looks, what kind of voice that person has, whether the form fits your expectations. But I see deeper. Does this fit what the season requires? Does this reach where your heart is standing right now? Does this carry what your current chapter needs? That is the way I send. What fits your soul is far more important than what initially moves your eyes. So understand this clearly. I send people in specific seasons because the seasons themselves carry different assignments, and your growth requires different kinds of help at different times. Some stay long, and some stay short. Some return unexpectedly, and some speak only once, yet leave an impact that lasts a lifetime. Some stand quietly by your side, yet still hold a massive purpose. Do not judge the meaning solely by the duration of their stay. Judge by what fruit is born in your soul. After that encounter, sometimes a single season changes simply because heaven knew exactly. When one person carrying what your heart needed had to arrive, my precise timing may be the clearest sign that what looks ordinary now was sent because I knew exactly what your soul needed, long before you could even explain it yourself. My child, in this part of your journey, listen carefully to my words. These words will protect you so that you do not bypass what I have intentionally placed before you. Do not judge what enters your life too quickly, simply because it does not instantly match what you expected. The human mind often jumps to instant conclusions based on appearance, tone, timing, memories, and emotions, without giving discernment. A moment to breathe. You have learned this world by observing patterns, protecting yourself, and quickly deciding what feels safe and what feels uncertain. But you must not dismiss everything that looks ordinary at first, nor should you dismiss something as unworthy of deep attention just because it feels unfamiliar. There are moments when your first impression is shaped more by past memory than by present truth, more by what once hurt you than by what I I am doing now. Therefore, I speak clearly. Do not hastily decide that something is unworthy of spiritual attention based on first impressions alone, because many of the things I send often enter so quietly that only patience can reveal their meaning. You often expect my movements to look obvious from the very moment they first appear. You expect that if I send something meaningful, it must be accompanied by immediate certainty, immediate recognition, immediate emotional confirmation, immediate visible proof. But I do not always work in the ways that human expectation calls obvious. I often send through vessels that do not look outwardly special, because I know how quickly human eyes get distracted by appearances and miss the essence. If I always sent through things that look impressive, many would begin to trust appearances more than spiritual discernment. So, I often allow my work to arrive dressed in simplicity, in a place where only those who know how to pause long enough can sense what external signs cannot immediately explain. The vessel may look ordinary. The moment may feel simple. The encounter may not dramatically announce itself, but hidden inside it could be something carefully appointed by my hand. Throughout your life, do not forget how often I have used unexpected things to accomplish what you later realized was deeply important. There were times when the answer did not come from the direction you expected. There were seasons when the prickers, help you needed, arrived through people you initially could not have imagined. There were moments when one quiet conversation held more truth than the grand signs you once wished for. I do not confine my movements to the limits of your imagination. I know exactly how to send through. What pride might ignore, through what fear might underestimate, and through what wounded expectations might initially overlook. Therefore, you must remain open enough for spiritual discernment to mature before judgment closes. The door sometimes answers arrive without an obvious sign, because not every answer is designed to impress at first sight. Some answers must unfold slowly, so that your soul learns how to recognize fruit rather than chasing dramatic signals. Many look only for what shines, what instantly feels special, and what carries visible certainty. But I tell you again, some of the deepest movements I create begin so quietly that only later do you realize how important their beginning was. Some people might enter without a dramatic announcement. Some conversations might begin without immediate intensity. Some presence might feel peaceful rather than overwhelming. But even within what looks simple, my holy assignment can still be contained. Premature rejection becomes a danger the moment you assume that anything meaningful must always come wrapped in an obvious sign. If you still believe in my promises, confess Amen in your heart, saying, Lord, my heart trusts in you, and try sharing this warm message of comfort with your precious loved ones.